What's going on, my babies? Welcome back to another episode of The Spiritual Word. As always, I apologize for any noises in the background in advance and anything of that nature. And I also like to start these off with a disclaimer by stating that these are for entertainment purposes only. Always do your own research, come to your own conclusions, to have your own answers, and I believe in your ability to do so and to be your own person, as you're already doing so by clicking on this episode. So, in today's episode, I'm going to be giving you the harsh fucking truth when it comes to relationships, because I feel like sometimes you need that person in your life who's going to just be honest with you versus tiptoeing around your feelings, because I fucking hate that. So today's episode is going to be a really fast and short, simple one. It's also going to be very brutal, so if this is not something that you're willing to listen to, or like something that you wouldn't enjoy listening to, then just, click off. That's simple. I have an audio version of this podcast in any audio areas. What am I saying? I have an audio version of this anywhere you could find audio podcasts. And I have a video version of this episode that goes up on YouTube. And yeah, so let's jump right into today's episode. So, a lot of the things that I've experienced and a lot of the things that I've witnessed in my reality has been relationships where people are not willing to accept what the relationship is, and they're not willing to work on the relationship, and blah blah blah, whoop-de-doo, And a lot of people that I've seen in relationships, most of the time they're codependent, or they're mirroring the same problems in each other, if that makes sense. And let me give you an example. I was friends with this kid in school, and this kid talked about how, like, he was so old. He was so old and had only had one real relationship, and it didn't even last that long. It wasn't even like a year. It was like, like 6 months or something like that. And that was the longest relationship and one of the only relationships that this person had ever been in. And, how no one loves this person and blah, 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 whoop-de-doo. Something that's always caught my attention is that it's always people who are, like, majorly depressed and who can't be okay alone who are in relationships. And most of the time, people who are not okay being alone are always in codependent relationships, because they are just trying to function. Put simply, like, you're just trying to exist, and you're going to do what makes it easier for you to exist, even if that means being in a relationship where you're not happy, because you feel like that's easier, or you feel like that gives you a reason to, like, whine or something. And by no means am I saying that these are bad people and that they make stupid choices and blah blah blah, because everybody has made that decision once in their life, even if they didn't even realize it. And shit happens. Living is hard. I give them credit, because life is hard and shit happens and things will continue to happen. But anyways, I digress. So I was thinking about, most of my friends are girls, at least this point in my life. Most of my friends are girls, and what I've experienced in my, like, straight friends, I use straight as, like, sexuality to me is like a fluid thing. You just love who you love, so I don't really, like, call people straight, or gay, because there's, like, fluidity in that, or in the words at least. And so what I've witnessed in most of my straight friends is that they get into relationships because they have some sort of the belief that's holding up the way that they act in relationships. Like, I know a lot of people with trust issues who are in relationships who will openly say, I have trust issues. And I'm like, huh? Like, if you have trust issues, why are you in a relationship? Shouldn't you be working on that? And they always tell me that they are working on it. But when it comes to, like, the actual watching of this dynamic, I'm like, I don't know if you really are working on it, because this dynamic doesn't seem to be a helpful structure for you. And if you're not willing to be by yourself, why are you with this person? And if you have trust issues, wouldn't it make more sense for you to be protecting your peace? That's why I don't understand that people will hold up this belief that it's not really theirs. And your beliefs are constantly holding up something. So let's say there's pillars that hold up this relationship dynamic, or the structure of a relationship. And one of those things is, oh, well, I have anxiety, or I have trust issues or whatever, the case is. I have mommy or daddy issues. Those are the pillars that are holding up your relationship. And so at any point in time, that could collapse because those things are not, they're not, I don't want to say solid because nothing is really solid, but it's all kind of temporary. And one of those things that holds up that relationship could be that you have mommy or daddy issues, and all of a sudden this person kind of like brings it out of you of like, oh, I don't want to be in this relationship because of like the only reason I like this person is because they remind me of like my mom or dad, and this is how my mom and dad treated me, and so this is how this person's treating me because that's all I know, and that's what I think love is, and blah blah blah. And you'll kind of realize that most of the time when you're in relationships, it's a lot of karma that's playing out. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that people are karmics to you and blah, 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 but, and like you have soulmates and blah, 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 because I genuinely think that most people, when you are in a relationship, the only purpose of that relationship is to show you something that you need to be working on. And the only reason I say that is because most of your relationships are doing that. When you're friends with people, you're friends with people because they'll show you something about yourself. Or you see something that reminds you of you. And the same thing goes for your family. Most of the time, you and your family, either you bump heads or you get along really well because of some dynamic that's being played out. Like if you, I don't know, have issues with your mom, then that will be shown to you. And those issues are not even like a bad thing. It's just what it's showing you something that needs to be worked on. And it doesn't even have to be worked on. If you don't want it to be worked on, then it doesn't have to be worked on. Just like, the dynamics with relationships and stuff like that. And that's why I feel like people stay in relationships where they're continuously showing you who they are, and you're just like, no, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Show me better. Show me better. And this is one of those things that, like, I feel like if you're in an abusive relationship, I feel like that's what it shows you. You are willing to accept abuse because you don't know anything other than that. And maybe you do know better, but you're not, like, you feel guilty for wanting better. And most of the time I feel like relationships are like, it's something that you're willing to be with, or something that you're willing to accept. Just like anything in this world, if you are willing to accept going to a job where you break your back for them, you're going to be doing it. Like, that's going to be your job. You're going to enjoy doing that. If you think that, I don't know, driving the nicest model of car and the nicest house in the nicest neighborhood is what you deserve, then that's what you're going to go after. Same goes for love. If you think you deserve top tier love, you're going to go after top tier love. If you think you deserve bottom of the barrel love, you're going to get bottom of the barrel love. If you think that you are abundant in every way, shape, and form, you're going to have abundance flow into your life. Same thing goes for if you think that you're at a lack state. Or if you have poverty consciousness and you think that, well, I'm never going to be able to have this, or I'm never going to be able to experience this, or blah, blah, blah. That's how you use and how love expands from you. And these people that reflect that to you, it's nothing more than just you. You are the only thing that exists in this experience. Obviously not the only thing that exists in this experience because you're experiencing the whole of it. But you and your qualities and your traits and the way you love and the way you accept love, that's you. And the only thing that comes out of you are those beliefs. And what will hold up these relationships, sometimes this is something that I've realized too. Let's say you get into a relationship and you're like, oh my god, I'm really, 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 really happy. And then all of a sudden you just like have a car accident or something really tragic happens. And you're like, wow, I don't think the same like I used to. Or like my life isn't the same. Or 20 years go by, right? And you're like, I am not happy in this relationship. I don't know what I was thinking when I accepted this person. Or like accepted love from this person. I don't know what I was thinking when me and this person decided that we were going to be together. And those are the types of things that happen over time because your beliefs change over time. You grow, you adapt, things make you different, and you become a different person. And every single day this is happening. And maybe you were willing to be with this person at that point in time, but you're a different person now, and you look back and you're like, wow, what was I thinking? It's that type of thing. So I'm one of those people that, like, I'm never really looking for a relationship. Things happen, and then I end up in relationships, and I kind of like jump out of them. Not fast, but as fast as I'm willing to, I guess, jump out of them, and not on purpose. Sometimes I do stay with these people for as long as I can because I'm like, oh, I don't really see the problem of us being together until later on, and I realize, oh, this is what this person is bringing out of me. This is what I'm bringing out of this person. And these are triggers that we are creating together. And I don't think it's healthy for us to exist in these triggers, especially if these are not something that we're happy with. And if anything, I should work on these triggers before I introduce myself to anybody in a relationship or to have a dynamic where that's the case. And I think that most people are not willing to like work on themselves before getting into relationships. And I'm not saying that you have to work on yourself because I don't think that anybody is imperfect, but I think you have to dissolve some beliefs in yourself before introducing somebody else's beliefs into your life just because everybody's different. And most people, they're not as shitty as they think they are, if that makes sense. Like, when people talk about how they have depression or anxiety or blah blah blah, I feel like those are just patterns of existence that you've existed in. And it could be the way that your brain works. You know what I mean? Like, my ADHD isn't something that I feel like I could just escape. But it is something that if I worked on it, it would get better and better and better. And I would get better at managing that set thing because it is the way that my brain works. But I can get better at managing the way that it works because I know myself and I'm willing to take care of myself and I'm able to take care of myself. And the same thing goes for people who, say that they have depression or anxiety or whatever. Sorry about that. And, if you're not willing to do those things, why are you willing to accept love from another person using those beliefs that don't work for you? If you already struggle with living on a day-to-day basis and you're like, well, I know that if I had a person, it would be a lot easier because then I'd have somebody to be fighting with me. And I think you forget the part that they're also fighting for their own life at any given moment. Like, I feel like people who are depressed kind of think of things a little bit more selfishly because they're like, this is fucking hard for me. And they forget that it's hard for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for the cats outside, the cats I see in my front yard, in my backyard. It's hard for them. You know what I mean? It's hard for people who are in jail. It's hard for people who work 9 to 5s. It's hard for moms. It's hard for dads. It's hard for, people who go and volunteer at soup kitchens. It's hard for everybody. But when you introduce somebody else into this dynamic of like, it's hard for me, bend over backwards for me, and when they don't do that, you're like, oh, you don't love me. Because that's holding up the pillars of the relationship and your beliefs. I feel like your beliefs really, really, really create your reality because if I believe that everything is a lot harder for me, then I'm going to act the most selfishly, especially when it comes to another person. If another person comes into my life and I'm like, you're not willing to like help me because it's hard for me and you need to like give me pep talks. You know what I mean? You need to be spoon feeding me, telling me that I'm so great and I'm so great and I'm so great. But even when you spoon feed me, I spit it out and regurgitate because I don't believe that. That's not true. Why would you feed me a lie? Why are you lying to me? You know what I mean? And same thing goes for if you're somebody who has a good belief system and you're like, well, I think that it's very important to take care of yourself before you introduce anybody else. And when you do introduce somebody else, it's good to communicate with them about everything. It's good to communicate. And it's good to be willing to, have really hard, heavy conversations because those need to be had. They need to be held. And it's all the same thing. Like, it's all, your beliefs are going to hold up whatever you want to be true. So if I'm somebody who's majorly depressed who wants someone, and then I bring somebody in and they're actually really, really healthy of a person, and they're like, I'm not going to be telling you whatever you want to hear because the reality of the situation is that life is fucking hard, and right now you're being selfish. And me in my brain, because my beliefs hold up my life, I'm going to say that's not valid in my reality. You know what I mean? And same thing goes for, and I'm going to sit here and play the victim and be like, oh, that person was so mean to me, blah, blah, blah. They weren't patient with me. They didn't give me time. But that's the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to find somebody who's not in the same frequency as you, or if they are in the same frequency as you, then things are going to happen and there's going to be holes because there's holes to your beliefs already. And you need to love yourself and love the world unconditionally for that to be reciprocated. But if you're not ready or willing to hold that truth up for yourself, then it's not going to be true. And it's just how things happen, it's how things play out. And that's another reason why, like, I don't look for relationships, because one, I fully believe that relationships are like karma, or like they're karmic, in the sense that, like, I have to learn something from this person, or from the triggers, or from my responses, or from their triggers. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's not that, like, you're the unhealthy person, sometimes it's they're the unhealthy person, and it changes. And I'm not gonna sit here and, like, say that I'm always the healthy person, but the majority of the times I am the healthier person, because I'm not, super duper selfish when it comes to relationships. And if anything, I bend over way too much for everybody else except for myself. So I'm giving all the love that I need to be giving myself. And, same goes for those other people, because they should be willing to love themselves before introducing another person. So, those triggers and those things, it shows you holes in, like, your belief system and the way that you're holding up your beliefs. Now, that's not always the case, right? Sometimes you can be in a really good relationship and it just doesn't work because life just doesn't have that written down in the stars for you. You know what I mean? And because of nothing really being permanent, that's another reason why I don't really look for relationships, just because I'm like, okay, this person could be here, but, who knows? And I don't know everything, so I'm allowed things to unfold the way that they need to. And with that being said, just allow things to unfold the way that they need to. Don't be going out and looking for relationships, especially if one, you don't even know what you want. And two, if you're somebody who needs to be loving themselves, love yourself before you bring somebody else into the mix, because most people think that, well, if I'm unhappy, somebody else is going to come make me happy. No. You need to make yourself happy before anything. Because if you're not able to make yourself happy, your beliefs are going to hold that up. And you need to dissolve that belief within yourself. With that being said, I'm gonna end this here just because I don't have enough space on my storage. So, yeah. Thanks for tuning in and tapping in. I hope that this was entertaining or helpful in any way, shape, and form. I upload Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. And if this is something you're interested in, come back and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.